Good evening, goeienaand, Molweni, and welcome to the Department of Agricultural Economics at Stellenbosch University. We are so grateful that you took the time this evening to join us. We are 100 years old this year and very grateful to be one of the oldest agricultural economics departments, not just in South Africa, but also on the African continent. At our department, we aim to be Africa's leading agricultural economics department that are globally recognized as excellent, inclusive, and innovative, and where we advance knowledge in the service of society by attracting outstanding students. I'm sure like those of you that are watching this evening, where we employ talented staff and provide a world-class learning experience for our students while also trying to enrich and transform the communities around us. My name is Melissa van der Merwe, and I'm a lecturer in the Agricultural Economics Department. And this evening, I'm also joined by my colleague, Lulama Traub, also a lecturer in our department, and then 3 of our postgraduate students who completed their undergraduate studies at Stellenbosch University, whom I'll introduce a little bit later. If you have any questions at any point in during this webinar, please post your questions in the chat box. If it's questions regarding admissions requirements and those types of things, our 2 colleagues, Precious and Monica, will be answering those. But you can also post other questions as we continue through the webinar. We'll get to those towards the end. You are also welcome to join further in the question and answer session at the end of this presentation. So thank you once again, and we look forward to engaging with you. Okay, so I thought to start the webinar off with a little activity. So I want you to scan the QR code with your mobile phone or go to the web link, polf.com/Melissa van der Merwe 287. On this web page, you'll see the first screen, which is the box at the top that says register for credit. You can just click skip now or skip for now. Then there'll be a next screen that says introduce yourself. You also don't have to do that. You can also just click skip. And then I want you to, in one word, if you can, or one word underscore next word, if you need more than one word, sort of tell us about the challenges that you think the world faces today. So maybe you've heard what's on the news that you want to share, or things that you think South Africa has challenges with. Maybe you've experienced things in your daily life that is a little bit disruptive. So just share one word or 2 words with us, and then let's get into a little bit of an exciting start to our webinar. So I'll just give a few minutes for that before we continue to the next slide. So scan the QR code or go to Poll Everywhere, the Poll Everywhere website. You can just type in the browser the web address down at the bottom. You'll get 2 screens. First screen, just skip for now. Second screen, skip for now. And then the third screen will actually allow you to type in a word or 2 words, as I've mentioned, word underscore another word. And then let's see what we get to. What are the challenges that we face in South Africa and that we hear about in the world that could impact us as South Africans as well? Okay, let me move to the next slide and see what we have. You can still continue posting. We should have a few responses. Let's see. Oh, wow, we have a lot of responses and they keep getting in. So I see inflation as a big one, uncertainty, inflation remains big, unemployment, whoa, unemployment became really big all of a sudden. Crime, poverty, warming, what else is there? Uncertainty, employment keeps getting bigger. I see tariffs, I see Trump, I see hatred, definitely still, unfortunately, especially if we look at some of our political parties. Climate change, I see. Water, I see, that's a big one. I don't see Eskom though. Maybe people are not so concerned about load shedding at the moment because we haven't had load shedding in a bit. Don't let me influence you. I see land, I see tensions. There's definitely a lot of tensions, especially when we look at the global environment. I see trade. I see malnutrition, definitely something to be concerned about. Geopolitical, I see. We have some smart people in the room today. I see corruption. That's also just one that became bigger now. I see food, uneducation. Okay, I think everyone contributed because it stopped at this point. So the reason why I thought to start with this exercise was just because we feel certain ways about certain things. We see things happening around us. We see things happening internationally that ultimately impacts us. We see our governments making certain decisions which impacts us. We see our tax money being spent in a specific way that influences us. We see services that should be provided that's perhaps not provided in the way that we want it to be provided, which impacts us. I'm sure it impacts when you have to do your homework and there's no electricity, or when you have to get ready for school and suddenly you don't have water, or mom and dad complains because they can't give you pocket money because inflation is higher and they struggle to make ends meet, struggle to pay for everything that they have to pay for. We see a lot of uncertainty, especially when we think about what's happening with our interest rates. So maybe mom and dad can't buy a bigger house with a swimming pool because they have to keep in mind increasing interest rates. So there's a lot of things that influences our day-to-day decisions. And it's important that we keep this in mind. And the reason why I say we have to keep this in mind is because these global challenges, and some of the things that we've seen on the screen was not mentioned during the poll. And these are things like, although we've sort of forgotten about it, things like COVID-19, which I'm sure disrupted a lot of your schoolwork and a lot of the way in which you could interact with your teachers, could interact with your friends. But aside from the pandemics that affects people, we also have diseases and pandemics that influences animals. If you think about foot and mouth disease, some of you might have heard about a lot of chickens being killed due to avian influenza. We hear about wars. We hear about countries being in conflict with one another. We are concerned about the environment. We see roads that are broken. When we travel to school or when we go on holiday, we see that roads are broken. Big trucks running on the roads, railways maybe not being used as they should. So there's a lot of things that we see in our day-to-day. And what I'm going to try to do in the next slide is I'm going to try to sort of move the challenges that we see to a point where these challenges have certain ripple effects, and these challenges and the ripple effects lead to data. And what you see on the screen now is some graphs that we have generated from these data sets. So the first one is the oil prices. And oil prices are influenced by things like war. And oil prices increase fuel prices, and higher fuel prices lead to more expensive food. Things like freight rates, because we have higher container prices and disruptions in our shipping routes, it gets more expensive to move products from, for example, if we export our table grapes to Europe, it gets more expensive to buy table grapes in Europe. Or if we import, for example, apples, maybe not apples, that's a bad example because we produce and store most of our apples. But for example, if you want to buy table grapes out of season, those need to be imported from Israel or from one of the other countries. And then we pay more for those table grapes because it costs a lot of money to get them from the point of origin to where we can consume them in South Africa. Fertilizer prices was another one that caused a lot of disruptions at the outbreak of the Russia-Ukraine war. Because a lot of our fertilizers are actually produced in those areas. So it's suddenly more expensive for us to source those fertilizers from those areas. That again leads to higher prices for our food because a lot of our food are produced on farms. And if we, for example, farm maize or soybeans or wheat or whatever is in our diets, we have to fertilize those crops. And because of that, we have higher prices for our commodities. which leads me to the commodity graph at the bottom left. So because we have higher fertilizer prices, higher oil prices, and we have higher commodity prices, but higher commodity prices are also influenced by what happens in other regions, because global commodity prices in South Africa are derived from global commodity prices. Climate change also influences commodity prices. Some of you that are listening tonight might be from the areas next to the Vaal River, for example, or in areas in the Free State or areas in the Northwest where we had significant rains, even areas in Limpopo where we had significant rains that really damaged some of those crops, which will then also lead to commodity prices. So not just climate change within South Africa, but also climate change globally, because in other regions where we have to import product, if you think about importing wheat, importing soybeans, or soybean oil cake, we'll get to the technicalities when you guys come study with us. So those types of things influences the commodity prices and then influences our ability to be able to buy things like bread, things like maize meal, etc. These things and other things obviously lead to higher inflation. And then because we have higher inflation, we have to do something in terms of policy making to ensure that we try and curb inflation, because obviously if inflation is too high, that means that our money becomes less valuable, because suddenly it's more expensive to buy the basics. And because of that, we use policies such as increasing interest rates, because if we increase interest rates, the theory behind it is that we will then spend less, which will reduce inflation to a certain extent. So all the events that we've seen recently sort of create a little bit of a chaotic environment in which we need to operate, and someone needs to make sense of all of this. And the person who makes sense of all of this is the agricultural economist. So as agricultural economists, we sort of analyze all the data and then use what we've learned in economics, management, data science, policy making to come up with practical problems to solve the challenges that we face in the agricultural sector, not just to help businesses do better and ensure people have food, but also to sort of support for example, trade relations, so that we are not constantly fighting with the sources of our food, for example. Not just about food, but also about clothing. There's a lot of agricultural economists that also work in industries such as cotton or wool, because we also have to obviously dress ourselves. You all need school uniforms to go to school. And we also use agricultural commodities for those types of products, such as cotton, probably in your schoolwear, or then wool in some of the jerseys that you might wear. So now we know sort of more or less what an agricultural economist does in terms of solving challenges. But the formal definition of what is agricultural economics is it is an applied field of economics. So we take the economic theory and we apply that to the agricultural sector to optimize the production and distribution of food and fiber products. So the reason why we say optimize is we have to food and clothe a growing global population with very limited resources. Some of you might come from more rural areas, and if you drive around, maybe you don't drive around or drive the road very frequently. Maybe it's once a year when you go on vacation. Last year you passed a specific area and there was no houses, and then the next year you pass it and now there's houses. So we are constantly limiting the natural resources that we have. Sometimes we also don't take care of our natural resources the way we should, and that limits the amount of food, and like I said, also the amount of fiber products that we can produce. Another resource that we have that we need to take care of and use optimally is something like water. We know that sometimes it rains and sometimes it doesn't rain, so we need irrigation, for example. As people, we also need to drink water. So it's also important for us to consider how we take care of our natural resources like water. Do we pollute our water? Do we have invasive species that are present in some of our water sources? Those of you that might be from the Hartbeespoort Dam will know that some of those invasive species are actually very bad for the Hartbeespoort Dam, and there's measures being taken to try and limit those invasive species. I'm sure you have a session with conservation ecology, and they will go more into those types of practices. But the agricultural economists basically use economic theory, a little bit of financial management to optimize the production of food and fiber products to feed a growing global population. Okay, so who are we? So I've already introduced Ms. Lulama Traub. You'll see here, there at the bottom, right, left. Sorry, my rights and my lefts are confused. Bottom left-hand corner, we have our HOD, Prof. Andre Jooste. He's in the field of policy and policy making. Then we have Dr. Willem Hofman, who's in farm financial management. So if you want to learn how to make a farm successful, how big your farm should be, what you should grow on the farm, he's the one that you'll learn most of that from. Then we have Dr. Cecilia Punt. So she and Ms. Traub works with international trade. They build all sorts of very interesting and complicated models to see who we should export to, when we should export, what are the tariffs that need to be in place, how does these tariffs impact the way in which we make decisions when it comes to trade. Then I'm there in the middle at the top. So I teach supply chain economics. So my field of interest is very much how do we move product from where we produce it to where we ultimately consume it? And then also, what do we do with the food waste at the end to really ensure that we don't unnecessarily waste food that could actually help one of the challenges that you've mentioned earlier, something like food security and malnutrition. Then Dr. Willem de Lange and Prof. Eric Mungatana, they are environmental and resource economists, natural resource economists. So they work very much with how do we use water optimally? How do we try and not waste the limited natural resources that we have? Then we have Dr. Jan Greiling at the bottom. He's our data guy. So if you like data and programming and playing around with all sorts of tools like Python and R, and you also like the technology things like drones and drone data and satellite data, then you'll find what he does very interesting. So we've just started to include that also in our undergraduate programs with data science, where you really learn how to work with big data sets and make sense of all the data that we gather. Then on the right-hand side, you'll see some of the more experienced professors. Professor Johan van Rooyen, he's an agribusiness guru. So you'll learn a lot from him in terms of agribusinesses. He also teaches rural development, and he's very passionate about us really developing our rural areas so that we don't have this disparity between urban areas being very sort of well taken care of and thriving, and then those of us that are from the rural areas are really struggling with services and roads that's broken, etc. Prof. Johan Kirsten is with the Bureau for Economic Research. He's a macroeconomist, was also an agricultural economist and the HOD at Pretoria University, now at Stellenbosch, and his field of interest is agricultural policy. Did quite a bit of work on land reform with Wandile Sihlobo, which is one of our extraordinary lecturers. So they've written many things about land reform, land redistribution, restitution, and how this should be approached. And then also how government fails some of those members of our society in the way in which those programs are structured. And then we have Prof. Nick Fink. He is a wine economist. Yes, there is such a thing. He specializes in wine economics. So what should prices of wine be? What are the trends in the wine industry? How should you produce wine? Should you just produce wine grapes and sell that, or should you actually make your own wine? So all the questions around wine economics is what he's passionate about, and he also teaches in that. And then lastly, we have Prof. Theo Kleinhans, former head of department. So many of your parents might know him. He is also a resource economist. He's retired, he's farming, but we still bother him from time to time, especially if we have students with a specific interest in the work that he does. Okay, so this is the team. You'll probably meet them in your first year when you start with us. Okay, so you sort of have an idea of what agricultural economics is, but I thought to make a sort of an image. I'm the type of person that learns and understands by images. So I took a man, but it can be a girl as well. I took a man and I split him in half, and I made one half of him a farmer and the other half of him a businessman. So what an agricultural economist is we have interest in animals and plants and food, but we also have interest in economics and data statistics and accounting. So when I was in your shoes and I had to make a decision on what I want to study one day, I was very confused because I don't want to do science because I don't want to work in a lab one day, and I also don't want to be in the field all day. And I didn't want to work as a quality assurance person in a food company. And I definitely don't want to be in a feedlot the whole day, making sure that the animals are eating enough and are not sick, etc. But I also didn't want to just work in a bank or do a lot of reading and write reports and work with a lot of data and write reports on the data, or do a lot of accounting and figure out the financial accounting books of a business. I wanted to find something that sort of mixes those two worlds, and that is pretty much what agricultural economics is. It allows you some time outside in the field with animals, with plants, with food, whichever you are interested in, but then it also combines the business side of things, the financial side of things, the economic side of things. So it's almost like taking the science world and making sense of it with economics and accounting skills. So almost seeing if the business makes a profit, for example, or if we can do something differently to increase the profit, or if there's a problem with the animals in the sense of we can't export them because they have foot and mouth disease, how do we change the policies for that? Or if we see that there's injustices in our society, like access to land, how do we change the policies to sort of accommodate that and stimulate the rural environment? So it's very much using all the theories that we have on the economic side and then apply that to the problems that we have in the science side. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so we have a few different degree programs. They are all more or less the same with some slight tweaks. I've added the QR code to our yearbook for you. The pages that you're interested in is specifically page 32 and onwards. There you'll find all the information about our BAgric Agribusiness Management program, the BSc programs with food science as well. So the BAgric Agribusiness Management program is a 3-year program. So you will do quite a number of more business orientated modules, but also some production modules. Then we have, or subjects, then we have the BSc Agric Agricultural Economics Analysis degree. This one focuses a little bit more on economics and statistics from your second year onwards. This is a 4-year degree program. Then we have the BSc Agricultural Economic Analysis and Management program. So the and management is an indicator that you'll do more financial management, business management modules. So it has a stronger financial focus as compared to the economic analysis one. So typically, those students who study BSc Agricultural Economic Analysis will likely go more into the economics space, more into policy making, whereas the BSc Agricultural Economic Analysis and Management students will go into also the economic spaces, and if you want to, into the policy space, but much more into the financial management space. So working for a bank, working with farmers to develop their financial statements, sort of submitting the applications for loans or supporting them with those applications, sometimes even working in some of the credit divisions of banks. Lulama will go more into the different types of careers that we have, that our students end up in. And then we have the 2 degrees that is with food science. So the core remains the same in terms of agricultural economics, is the one where you do economics and science and some policy making, but then with some food science modules as well, or subjects. And then the last one is then the same in terms of it has a focus on management, but then also with food science modules or subjects on top of that. We have a few students who are interested in food science, but they don't want to go work in a factory or in a lab. So they don't want to become food scientists, but they might one day want to be part of the procurement team of a food company, or they want to perhaps have more of a management role in a food science company. And those students typically study those last 2 degrees. We have also the admission requirements in the block down there at the bottom. So you need English for Afrikaans, you need mathematics, not math literacy, pure mathematics, and then you need physical sciences. So if you have any questions around the admission requirements, you are welcome to post in the chat. Monica and Precious are very well versed in all types of questions that you might have on the admission requirements, and they would be happy to assist you with any questions that you might have. Just maybe a last note on the yearbook. You'll see from page 32 onwards, it lists the programs, and then it also lists the modules that you will typically take in those programs. And then if you go to the end of the yearbook, you'll see a short description of each module. So it might not make sense if you see agricultural economics 346, but if you go to the back of the book, it will actually explain what is agricultural economics 346, so that you really have enough information to decide which one of these programs is the one for you. Okay, so just again on the typical subjects, again, some science subjects, some business subjects. So we have many of the science subjects, maybe I should also just say this, many of the science subjects are in your first year, and then some in the second year. Sorry, I see there's an automatic forward on my slide. So many of the science subjects are first year subjects, and then you continue with them in your second year. The business subjects run from your first year up to your third or then your fourth year. So typically science subjects, you probably know some of these from what you've done in school, maybe just a little bit more focused: biology, animal production, agronomy, crop protection, soil science, horticultural science. And then on the business side, agricultural economics you'll do in your second and third year for the BAgric program, or then second, third, and fourth year if you do the BSc program. So agricultural economics you'll have throughout. Business management, economic statistics, financial accounting. Again, just for the management, economic analysis and management, you'll do more of business management, financial accounting, financial management, marketing management, strategic management. And then for the economic analysis one, you'll do more of economic statistics with then some logistics and supply chain management, some business management, some marketing management, etc. So we really try to strike a balance between the science subjects and the business subjects, but we need to consider that we are economists at the end, and we do have a stronger focus on business subjects and sort of a foundation in the science subject side. These are the components of agricultural economics, and you'll see that many of these words are actually what your lecturers was interested in that I showed you earlier. So we have, I would also almost want to say at the top of agricultural economics, we have production economics, because we are in the business of making sure that we use our inputs as efficiently as possible and optimally as possible to make the most outputs that we can from what we have available. Then we have financial management, which is also a very important component of agricultural economics, because we have to make a profit from what any business in the agricultural sector is doing, whether you're a farmer or whether you have a processing plant or whether you are a food company, or even when you're a retailer. It's very important to do the financial planning and financing, ensuring that if you need a loan, you get a loan. So that's also an area that we play a very big role. ABSA, for example, takes quite a lot of our agricultural economists as agri-specialists for the purpose of supporting farmers that have financing. Then we have agricultural marketing. So if you're interested in that, it's typically looking at pricing and markets and international trade, and Lulama will go more into that. Then we also have agricultural policy, which is a big area in our domain and a big part of what we do. Because any policy that impacts the agricultural sector, there will usually be an agricultural economist involved to explain why or why not implement a specific policy, or why not change a specific policy. Maybe just as a side note, our extraordinary appointed as a lecturer, Wandile Shlobo, is actually one of the advisors to the president, and he's an agricultural economist. So we really have a big role to play when it comes to the agricultural sector as agricultural economists. Then we have agricultural development. So that's what I said Prof. van Rooyen is very much interested in. That's more rural development. How do we really stimulate our rural areas for economic development so that they are also thriving? If you think about it, a lot of our food production is actually on rural or in rural areas. And there's a lot of support required to ensure that we can, in fact, feed the nation. And then the last one, but not the least, is environmental economics. Like I explained, it's important for us to be able to use our natural resources as efficiently as possible to feed this growing population that we are faced with. Okay, so I also thought maybe just to explain, once you are done with your studies, what attributes would you have? So obviously you'll be an agricultural economist ready to analyze economic, financial, and policy changes to find suitable solutions, as I've mentioned. But Stellenbosch University also have a list of graduate attributes, and as your lecturers, it is our responsibility to help you to develop these attributes. So we really, and I think the agricultural economics department does this exceptionally well, we really try to help you to develop into a critical and creative thinker. I mean, if you can recall that slide with all the problems that we are facing, we really try to equip you with enough tools and skills to be able to think critically about those problems and then find a solution. So we try to develop problem solvers in a way. We want to develop you and support you to allow you to make informed and considered decisions. Obviously, if you, like Wandile, have to support and inform the president, things can go really badly if you make the wrong recommendation. So we really try to support our students to make informed and well-informed decisions. A lot of our agricultural economists end up as leaders, but you also still need to collaborate with other sectors within the agricultural industry. So that's one of the attributes that we also aim to achieve. We also want our students to be social entrepreneurs because we are not individuals living in isolation. We are part of a bigger society and part of a bigger community, and it's our responsibility as agricultural economists also to ensure food security, or to try and ensure food security in what we do in our day-to-day. And then, of course, we want to help students be lifelong learners and take responsibility for their own development. I know many of the agricultural economists currently working in the agricultural industry, and not one of them have stopped learning or stopped upskilling themselves, because our challenges are constantly changing and the things that we face are constantly changing. And it's important for us to sort of upskill ourselves to be able to continue to find sustainable solutions to some of these problems. Okay, I'm going to stop there and hand over to my colleague Luloma Traub to talk you through the career opportunities.
Great, thanks, Melissa. And good evening to everyone who's on this call, prospective students or future students. So I'm going to take about 5 minutes. Can you see my screen, Melissa?
Yes, thanks, Lou.
Awesome. So I'm going to take about 5 minutes to kind of talk a bit about, I'm trying to find my sharing button. Excuse me. Right, there it is. Presenting. All right, I just want to take about 5 minutes just to talk about career opportunities that you have available to you as a graduate with a degree in agriculture economics coming from Stellenbosch University. To do this, then, I would like the prospective students to consider 3 questions. The first is, how do you want to earn your money? The second question is, where do you want to land? In other words, which sector do you want to earn your money in? And then the third question is, what do you think the future of your job will look like? So if you've chosen a certain career path, what do you think the future of that career is going to look like, say 5, 10, 20 years down the road? So I want to look at each one of these questions in turn, because the way you go about answering these questions are really going to determine what type of career opportunities are available to you. And as a department, our job, as Melissa had just said in her previous slide, our real focus and our job as faculty members within this department is to really equip you guys as students to answer these questions in the way that you want to answer these questions. So let's start with the how. How do you want to earn your money? Here I'm borrowing from Robert Kiyosaki, sorry, I mispronounce his name all the time, from his book, Rich Dad's Cash Flow Quadrants. And in his book, he says there's 4 ways over the course of your career you can earn your money. The first way is as an employee. So you work for an institution, you work for a firm, and you have a job and you get a salary. Second way in which you can earn your money is you can be self-employed. So here you own your own job. So think about this as a business consultant or a consultant. So you own your own job, you set your own terms, you choose which jobs you take. So that's self-employed. Third way in which you can earn your money is as a business owner. So here you own a system that works for you. And then the fourth and final way that you can earn your money over your lifetime is as an investor. So here now money works for you. So coming out of this department with a degree in agriculture economics, our goal is really to give you as graduates the choice on how you want to earn your money. Do you want to work in a firm and work as an employee? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you want to be an investor? Do you want to be self-employed? So our job is to really equip you with the skill sets so you can make this choice for yourself. So that's on the how question. Let's talk about where. Where do you want to land? So which sector do you want to operate in? And with the degree in agriculture economics, it really opens up a diverse set of career choices that are available to you. And I know Melissa had touched on this a little bit in her presentation. So you could, for instance, work in the public sector. Here's where you're working with government officials, you're advising them on policy, you're writing policy, you're providing the data and the evidence to support a particular policy direction. So that's the public sector. You could also work in farm management. So this is at the primary level, so right on the farm, where you're working with the knowledge of financial and farm management. You're working with farm businesses to make them profitable. You're looking at future investments that could take place at the farm, etc. You can also work in the banking and financing sector. And here, Melissa again touched on ABSA, how ABSA brings in a lot of our graduates who have a lot of ag economists in their department, where they're agri-specialists, where they're working with farmers, they're evaluating their financing applications, getting them set up to receive financing in order to make their business enterprises profitable. You could also end up in marketing and logistics. Here, this is dealing with trade. It's dealing with global food systems, supply chains, looking at buying, selling, shipping commodities. We have some of our graduates that are operating. I know one of our former graduates, he works with one of the biggest citrus exporters and they export to the US. So he's really challenged right now, or pressed with these tariffs that Trump is playing around with. You could also work with research and training, and this for me is my wheelhouse. I love research. I love looking at data. I love looking at trends that you pick up in the data and then trying to come up with what is the implication in terms of the public sector. So in terms of policies, what are the implications in terms of the private sector? How are these trends that are emerging going to affect how business gets done? Then you could also work with agribusiness management. And so agribusiness management, this is where you're working with actual firms that are operating in the agribusiness space, of whether they're food processors, whether they're traders, etc. And so you're working with managing the complex process involving with business to business relations, and managing overall value chains. So these are some diverse career choices that you have available to you. This next slide shows some of these companies or institutions that our students, our former graduates, are employed in, right? So we've got here the banking side, of the financing side, you've got Land Bank, ABSA, Standard Bank. You've got on your input side, so your John Deere, your Syngenta companies that are hiring graduates with a degree in agriculture economics. Here we've got our growers associations. So you've got your Hort Grows, your Grain South Africa. We've also got our government parastatal, the ARC, which is the Research Council. We've also got some of our graduates that are operating actually in government, so working for the Department of Trade and Industry, Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, the Western Cape government, working with NMAC, also BFAB, which is a research think tank as well, also the Department of Environmental Affairs. We have graduates that are working within agribusiness firms, so your agro processors, so your Nestle companies, your Rainbow Chicken Company, your BKB, PepsiCo, Tiger Brands, all the way down into the retail level of the food system. So working for Woolworths, Spars, Freshmart. So really our job in the department is to equip you. And I know Melissa had gone through the programs. Those programs aren't necessarily just thumb sucked. We've been very deliberate in trying to consider what type of content do we need to provide you as students or prospective students and future graduates to be able to give you the choice, open up these choices and these options of where you would want to work. And then finally, the what. What is the future of jobs? Because not only do you need to answer the question of how you want to earn your money, where do you want to end up working, but what do you think your future looks like? And here I want to share with you one of my favorite African proverbs, and that is, tomorrow belongs to the people who prepare for it today. And I'm really impressed by the number of prospective students that have joined the webinar, because it tells me that you are a group of students that are looking towards your future and you're trying to prepare for your future. And it doesn't stop just here once you get into university. I'm always telling students to always scan the horizon, look to see where do you think the trend, where's the horizon heading? And where do you think the trend is going to land? And so one of the things that we do as a department and among ourselves as staff or lecturers is we look at reports like the World Economic Forum Future of Jobs. And this is what they're projecting. And this is their 2024 report. And here they're looking at the top fastest growing jobs that they're expecting to grow fastest between 2025 and 2030. And if you look there, you see big data specialist, which is very good, which is interesting because I think it's a good thing that we have Jan in our department because he really is tackling this area here. So big data specialist, financial tech engineers, AI and machine learning specialists. So this is what they're projecting over the next 5 years are going to be the fastest growing jobs. And with those jobs that are growing fastest, it means core skills that are going to be required by the sectors and by the industry are going to also change. And these are the things that we as a department, we're constantly trying to keep an eye on. So again, it's not just what we teach, but also how we teach, right? So if AI and machine learning specialists become important, we're starting to grapple with this issue. Well, how do we bring in AI tools into our courses in order to build the students' AI literacy so that by 2030, they have the requisite skills to deal with these changing job markets. So with that, then I'd like to end it here. Turn it back over to you, Melissa, for the Q&A with the students.
Thanks, Lulama. I wonder what that graph looked like 5 years ago, because then we didn't have any data and AI and all of that. So yes, definitely something that we, as Lulama said, keep an eye on, because ultimately our goal as your lecturers are to make sure that you have sort of like a little bit of an open degree program where you can really focus on or really be agile in a sense, so that you can change your focus and your trajectory in terms of your career. So I thought to bring in some of our former students. I convinced 3 to give up studying for the evening or working on their research to spend some time with you this evening. First up, we have Liesje Eigenhuis. She did the B-Agric Agribusiness Management course. So if you have specific questions for her, you can pop them in the chat. Her research interest is the financial implications of replacing wine grapes with almonds. So looking at the type of work that Dr. Willem Hofman works with, thinking about what are the choices and what are the factors that a farmer who is currently farming wine grapes need to consider before pulling out all the wine grapes and planting that with almonds. Then we have Christian van der Westhuizen. He did the BSc Agricultural Economics degree program. And he's actually interested in an environmental issue where we have invasive species that is causing a lot of problems, and he's going to do a cost-benefit analysis on that. And then we have Latita Ngwane. She is a former student of the B-Agric Agribusinessman program as well. And she's interested in wine and specifically how complex wineries' websites make it more difficult to grow their e-tailing. So I'm going to stop the presentation at this point and ask them to share their videos so that we can see their faces. And then I'm just going to ask a few questions, sort of questions that I preempted that you might have for them, things that from experience we know students, prospective students, and parents usually want to know from them. And then, like I said, if you have any specific questions for them, you can also pop them in the chat. So the questions are not just going to relate to their programs, but also relate to their experiences of our department, just so that you have a little bit of a feel of the culture of our department. And then, of course, studying on the beautiful campus of Stellenbosch University. Thank you, guys, for giving up studying. I know you have a lot on your plate, and it's a busy time of the year for most of you as well. So thank you for making some time. I should perhaps also just note that the 3 of them are also part of our postgraduate association. So we have an association of students that really tries to create opportunities for our students, not just postgrad, but also undergrad, to interact with industry. So a few weeks ago, they had a speed networking event where they invited some industry members in the area, mostly Stellenbosch, but a little bit outside of Stellenbosch as well, to engage with the students, to talk to them about career choices. And we had quite a big turnout of students who was really interested in hearing from the industry what the jobs are about, and so forth. I think many of you are from the agricultural sector will know that it's not so much about what you know, but it's about who you know and building those relationships from an early stage. And this is what the Postgraduate Association typically does for our students. So I'm going to get right into it. And Latita, I'm going to pick on you first, because I mean, Liesje sent me a picture of her being in a vineyard on a farm. But why did you decide on agricultural economics? I mean, you've been in my office a few times. You're always very nicely dressed. It doesn't look like you want to become, be dirty and on a farm. So why did you pick agricultural economics?
It's actually, I stumbled across the degree by accident. I was interested in viticulture and winology. That's just like the production of wine. And then I went to the open day that the university has, and we did the tour of the cellar, and there was just a lot of heavy lifting and the buckets, the grapes, and I was just not interested in that. It was looking like a lot of work. And then there was the different booths with the different programs, and there was the agriculture economics booth, and they were just speaking about like what the lecturers are saying now about the banking industry and the production, the finance, and all of that. And I was interested in business. I did business studies in high school, so I was like, oh, this is like what I want to do. So it's kind of like my business studies side that I was interested in school, and then with like agriculture, so that I don't have to be in an office every single day. And I picked Stellenbosch University because it has the best agricultural department as a whole. And then, and then the safety of the campus as well. That was a big one for me because I like the fact that I can walk from home to campus if you live close, and then there's just students everywhere around. It doesn't feel like you're at a school in a city. So yeah.
I mean, I can relate, but I did my studies at the University of Pretoria, and this is just a much nicer environment in a sense. Thank you for sharing that. Christian, I'm curious, why didn't you study conservation ecology? Because your interest is more on that side. Why agricultural economics?
So we have a family farm, and on our family farm we've got a big problem with an invasive species called Prosopis. Well, it's a couple of species and it's hybrids, so that's why I wanted to actually do the agribusiness or go towards the business side, but then I thought, okay, I actually owe it to to my family and our farm to maybe do something in about that specifically, yeah. So that's why I leant more towards that side.
Okay. So is the plan to go back to the farm?
Not necessarily. I'm already quite involved on the farm at the moment. I actually go across there quite often over weekends and whatnot, or when I'm free. But yeah, it's just a bit too small to actually go and be there permanently, and maybe not really my directed field. I don't really want to go into farm management as much as something like trade analytics or in that direction. So yeah, maybe not.
Okay, well, I mean, it's brave to say. Leisha, are you going back to a family farm? Why did you study agricultural economics? What's your future plans?
So hello. Currently, no, I'm not going back to any farm. We have some family farms up in Natal, but no, that's not in the plan. I think, like Latita said, we like it's very nice to see other people do the hard work, because I've spent quite a lot of time on the family farms. So usually when I see people working hard and like shoveling dirt and like digging things and just working, then I'm like, I'm so glad I didn't have to put in this today or do that today. So I really like those people, hats off to you. That's physically hard labor. So I think we're taking a bit of a shortcut having like sitting in the office, but which is nicer. Maar yeah, no, definitely I think the very nice thing about the course is the fact that it allows you it's very broad, so it allows you to be inside and outside. So that's actually one of the reasons why I decided to study it, is so that I can hopefully have an aspect of maybe consulting, going to farms, and then I'll still having like the job office aspect of having both those sides, instead of sitting just in the office for like 8 to 10 hours a day. Sure.
I think one of the characteristics of an agricultural economist is someone who can't just focus on one thing. Maybe we have a little bit of ADHD. I don't know. I mean, I'm the same. I want to be busy with this and then move to that and then do this and then do everything together as well. So I can relate to what you guys are saying. Maybe, I mean, you did touch a little bit about on what you enjoyed, or what do you enjoy about agricultural economics as a field. But what did you enjoy most about the program, most about studying in our department specifically? Let's start with Christian.
Specifically, I enjoyed the camaraderie. So like meeting people, everybody's very friendly. It's not a very impersonal department. Everybody knows each other. So I enjoyed that quite a lot. Work-wise or curriculum-wise, I enjoyed the coding and econometrics side of things. That's interested me quite a lot. So yeah, that's what I enjoyed.
Okay, Latita?
For me, I enjoyed like the blend of like agriculture economics, business management, as well as like the introduction that you get in the first and second year of the science-based side of it. So horticulture was my favorite, especially in the second year when we do more so on like the citrus, and we on your practical days you actually go to the farms, to the school farm, and we go up to the citrus orchard, and you actually get to see practical rather than you study something, you open a book. With this degree specifically, you can look at the agriculture economics side of the effects of the product, and then you can also see it practically, like, okay, the product quality, and understand it, and you can have like, it sort of gave me insight on what I want to do after school, like because we did animal reproduction and the animal side, and then we did the horticulture side. You're able to understand like, are you more on the animal, or are you more on like the produce side? So that was the main thing. And then surprisingly, because the degree is not so linear, you do things that you don't expect to think that you ever do, like with Christian said, with econometrics. Going into it, I was very scared of it because I'm not on the data side. But when you get into class, and because our lecturers know so much, you kind of enjoy it because they enjoy teaching it. So I found myself actually enjoying econometrics, which was, for someone who has very low Excel skills, it was quite enjoyable to have starter experience as well.
Okay, yes. I think that is also maybe one of the strengths of our department that I also just want to share. As lecturers, we do quite a lot of research within the industry. So, and we don't do just this just because we want to, or it's nice and we like to overwhelm ourselves with some additional work. We do that so that we can bring industry into the classroom and really make sure that you guys do what you are going to do in practice, you know, already within your degree. Leisha, what was your favorite?
I think, yeah, there's a few things you guys said, the main points. I love the econometrics. We wrote econometrics today. That's why our brain is full of econometrics. But yeah, I think just adding on to it of like the wide variety of subjects you have is like you're never going to get bored. You surprised every time you're like, oh, now I'm doing soil science. Oh, now I'm doing business management. Oh, now I'm doing statistics. Now I'm doing animal anatomy and physiology. So you just never know what's next. Meanwhile, you hear other students that are having the same boring subjects again and again, and then you're like, I'm sorry, ne? But I think as well as the students, the lecturers, for quite a few of the agriculture economic modules, especially with Prof. Jooste as well, and also in Dr. van der Merwe's class, of them trying to organize guest lectures. So even at undergrad level, our lecturers try to organize ways for the students to get to know more of the industry and to learn more of the industry, and opening up that doorway of connection and having an idea of more what's out there, because sometimes usually we do get stuck in theory and in our books, but our lecturers try to make ways for us to connect with what's out there instead of just being in a box. Yeah. As well as I think like Christian said, we're a smaller faculty, so you know everyone, so it's more personal. Yeah, it's very lekker.
Thank you for that. And I think you guys will notice once you start your jobs, you will have a big network of people working in the same industry and you'll know each other. It's about those relationships. And I think that's one of the strengths of agricultural economics. There's not a lot of graduates. There's not a lot of people working in the field compared to other study and degree programs. So it really remains sort of like a more intimate group of people working together to solve the problems that we alluded to earlier. And the reason why we bring in guest lecturers is so that you can see in practice what you can do as an agricultural economist, because it can be overwhelming. The slide that Lulama shared I mean, there's a lot of companies that you can work for and a lot of different skill sets that you need for those different roles. I mean, you guys just said that you wrote econometrics yesterday. So what is difficult about the course? What is things that is challenging at times? And I mean, obviously the workload might also get to you. So how do you manage that? And how do you, I think, also balance that with your university life? Because you're not just here to study and write tests. Latita, let's start with you.
The one thing that I'll say that was a big adjustment for me coming was because my first year I went into private accommodation and not like on campus. It was adjusting to not having your parents there to help you, but still managing to have time to study, complete assignments. So that was the biggest adjustment, was having to balance my time with, okay, once I get home, I have to cook, clean, do laundry, and then still have time to study, and then still have time for a social life and everything. So the biggest thing for me was definitely that adjustment. And then in terms of the degree itself, for me, that was difficult, I think, was grasping the fact that I'm not just studying and regurgitating the work. Like I have to sit down and understand. And that also came with time management, was actually having to be like, okay, you have to understand it, because the way that they ask us questions in our test projects, it's more so on like an understanding rather than, do you know the definition of this? Do you know the definition of that? So that was, the time management for me was basically like the hardest thing.
Thank you. Christian, I see you nod. Can you relate?
Yeah, or I can relate with studying to understand the work. In the beginning, I was more of like a parrot learner, and then that's kind of backfired a few times. So yeah, in that aspect. But I was quite privileged to actually grow up here in Stellenbosch, so I didn't have to adjust too much to going to Stellenbosch University. It was more like when you went from primary school to high school, it was like, oh yeah, something new. Like that same adjustment happened with going to university. Yeah, otherwise, I think it was a bit of a tough adjustment at first, but like I said, it was transferring that studying to pass to actually understanding the work, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. So maybe I should just share that our students have a lot of support. So Stellenbosch University is really set up well for any type of support that any student might need. This is from how do I manage my time to how do I need to adjust my study method for the specific module? How do I change my study method if I study for another module? How do I plan my exam timetable or my study timetable for my exam? How do I deal with anxiety through some of the counselors that we have and psychologists that we have? And even just for, career advice or career goals, the doors of the lecturers at our department specifically are wide open for those types of conversations. When I could relate to what Latita said and to what you said, Christian, when I was a student and I struggled on my own. I tried to mission through everything, tried to manage everything on my own, didn't ask for help. And I think it's important to know as a student and as a prospective student, you don't have to struggle alone. There's so many opportunities for you to get help. And I think what's nice about our department, the lecturers are approachable and you can really walk into someone's office and say, I need help. Can you connect me with the right people? And that's what we're here for. We are really here for making or trying as much as we can to have smooth sailing throughout your degree program. Lisha, is there anything that was difficult for you? Every time I saw you in the corridors, you were all smiles. So it didn't really feel like you were struggling through anything.
No, so actually, I'm from Joburg, so my parents are quite far away. So when I originally came here, there's a lot of growth that happens in your first year of university. You think a matric, I know everything. I'm a big grown up now. And then the first year of varsity hits you, you're like, I know nothing. But I think it was very important. It's a big, I'm not going to lie, it's a big adjustment in the first year. Because I think in school, you go through a whole year of where you for one subject, you go through like maybe a 200, 300 page textbook, and then you go from where you have 6 or 7 modules, and you have a module where you go through like 1,000-page textbook maybe in the span of like 12 weeks, and you're like, huh? So I think the biggest lesson I've learned to do in first year was to work hard. When you work hard, you work hard, and when you play hard. So there's no, my mom would always say dawdling. I'm not sure what is the correct word, but there's no like wasting time. If you're gonna work, you need to work, and if you play, then you play. But yeah, you need to commit. So yeah.
That's good advice. Committing, whether it's committing to playing and or committing to working, but at least there should be a balance, right? You can't just commit to the one. You have to commit to both if you want, a successful first year and beyond that. I think since Lisha brought us to a little bit of advice for first year students, what would your advice be, Latita, for some of these guys that's going to start with us next year or the year after?
Go to all your classes. That's the first thing I'd say, is like go to the classes, go to the 8 a.m.s. Like in winter, it's a struggle. I was complaining to ma'am in class that like those mornings are hard to get up, but going to class, especially if you go in and you're engaged, like don't just go there and just be busy on your phone, like actually be engaged and ask questions. I found asking questions helped a lot. Like I'll raise my hand and ask a question because it helps you understand better. So you're thinking that your question it's not a smart question or whatever, or it's like a dumb question. I guarantee you there are 5 other people in the classroom that are thinking the same thing, but they just don't want to ask. So don't be afraid to ask. And back to like our lecturers being very supportive, they actually want us to ask us questions. If we don't ask questions, it's an issue. Like they're like, do you guys know like where you're understanding, okay, follow me. They want us to ask questions. So it's going to class, asking questions, and then also one of my biggest regrets was not having the balance. I was so busy with school, trying to get all my assignments, and by the time it was June holidays or long weekends, I was burnt out that I didn't even have time. I didn't even want to socialize. I didn't want to do work placements or anything, and now it's catching up to me because I'm having to find internships, work placements. So if you can just find the balance of doing other things other than an assignment, a test, that will help you later on in life because you don't get burnt out, and you also, the experience that you get and the knowledge, you don't have to play catch up once you're done with school.
What you're saying is super valuable. And I mean, you ask questions, not just a question in a class, you ask many questions in a class. And that's nice because it's engaging, right? And by you asking a question, 2 other students feel comfortable to ask questions. And I also want to add to that to say that if you ask questions, your lecturers know who you are. So if the phone call comes from a company asking, do you have sharp agricultural economists that needs employment, the guys who ask questions immediately pops to mind. So yeah, thank you, Latita, for all the questions that you've asked in all the classes that you've been in so far. The other thing I can relate to, I was giggling a little bit, was actually be in class and not just go to class, but be in class, be present. I remember my first year chemistry, I sort of slept through the entire thing, and I obviously had to redo that. So definitely be in class and be present. Christian, any advice?
Yeah, I think projects, or for me, it was projects. Start them early and study. Don't go out too much. I've done that a few times as well, where I've gone out and then, oh no, there's a test coming up, and don't do the best. So I think projects, if you get them out of the way and your studies out of the way quickly or early on, then you find that you have more free time and the workload doesn't pile up on top of you. And then you feel a lot more free to do other things. And I wasn't really someone who asked questions in class. I was too shy to. So I think that's also quite important, but maybe not for everyone. And yeah, otherwise keep your head down, do the work, and then you'll get through it. Yeah.
Thanks, Christian. Lisha, I want to end off with you. You came from Johannesburg alone to Stellenbosch University. I guess it must have been a very daunting exercise, you know, even just walking into your first class, not knowing anyone, not having, I guess, like good friends or a support structure at Stellenbosch. How did you navigate that? What advice do you have for some of the students that might come from far away?
So what I would say on that is, so if you're not in RES, then you are in what they call a PSO, a private student organization. And in your first year, you have orientation week that you have orientation, and you meet like a lot of people. And it's also in the summer of Stellenbosch, so it is quite hot and there's a lot of people and you're uncomfortable. And even if you're also an introvert, it might be a bit of a struggle. But you know what? You need to put yourself out there. And I struggle a lot with like just going up to people and start talking to people. And now it's like second nature. So yeah, I would say definitely RES really helps, from what I understand, many people to quickly, easier to get to know more people. But PSO is also, is there for you, but the problem is many people don't always come. But yeah, you need to, there's also, the university has a lot of societies. I think they have over 60 societies of sports you can join. There is a board game society, there is gymnastics, there's ballroom dancing, there's a hiking club, there's an anime club, there's a beer drinking society, there's a wine drinking society, there's the list goes on and on. So I would really say that have to also add on to that balance that you have. I really enjoy hiking, and there's actually mountains here in the Western Cape. So yeah, I would really say get a society that that you enjoy, and then obviously when you meet people that have the same interests as you, you can start easier to build friendships and get to know more people. But step out of your comfort zone.
Can I add to that? Sorry.
Yes, please go ahead, Latita.
The last thing is just the department. We also have like our own events. Show up to those, because in first year, I came a bit late, so I didn't go to orientation and the PSO events, but I did go to the department, the ASA department, BRI, and I met a lot of people that were doing the exact same degree as I was. So it does help navigate the first year, because everyone is just clueless, and going to that helped me specifically with school, because I met people that were able to say, no, I have the same issues, but like this is how I solved it. So look at like what the ASA, I think the MS Teams, or whatever emails, keep in touch with the department events, because you get to meet people that will help you with schoolwork, speaking, whatever, or bring up things that you never thought to bring up. But
Excellent. Thank you for all the advice. I wish I had a session like this when I started my degree. It really helps. And I think it's also a little bit comforting to know what to expect. Please keep your videos on, guys. I'm not sure if there's questions in the chats that you can help with specifically. Precious, are there any unanswered questions in the chat?
Yes, there are. There was a question, I think, that is directed to the students, which may have been touched on a little bit, about what challenges did you face during your degree. So I don't know if any of you guys want to elaborate more on those. And then there's also a question about what makes BAgric agribusiness management the degree to pursue, especially in the country we live in.
Okay, so let's
I'll let you know what the other questions are.
Okay. So Latita, you studied BAgric, and Lisha, you studied BAgric. Why did you guys pursue this? What is your career plans?
I did it because it's the business management and then also agriculture economics. So I'm more focused on the retail side. That's where I want to focus on, is more so on like the inside of the value chain. So whether it be supermarkets, like my research assignment with, even if it's direct to consumer, that's what I'm focused on. So when my degree, I went up to third year doing marketing management. So in second year, I did want to switch to I think the one with business analytics, but I saw that I can't do marketing management until the final year. So I stayed with the BAgric one because I do want to focus on marketing and consumer communication, because I think if consumers don't understand what they're buying, what is in the produce that they're buying, you need to be able to communicate to consumers so that they are more willing to price it, paying for things, especially when you're looking at like the environmental sustainability. You end up spending more, so you need to explain to consumers, oh, I'm paying more because this was sustainably grown. And that also helps with the production side, because farmers get more, or people along the value chain, they end up getting more of the price than producing something sustainably, and then consumers aren't willing to purchase it because they don't understand why they're spending more for it. So yeah.
Okay, great. Lisha?
Well, I would say, first off, I was like, let me rather study 3 years instead of 4 years, because my dad's paying for me and I'm studying and doing honors anyways. But oh well. I would say, I think really it's really the broadness of studying agriculture economics. Having that, I want to almost say like the dual medium of the business and the agriculture. Because you can pursue a job in the financial world, financial corporate world, from studying agriculture economics if you want to, or go lower down the value chain back to the farmer. So there's so much space for agriculture economists everywhere in the world. I almost want to say it's almost like hard to, once we finish studying and we need to start searching for a job, it's not like where you're like, oh my goodness, where can I apply? It's where should I apply? It's all over and it's so broad, which is so nice, because I know everyone worries about, will I get a job one day, because unemployment's so high, and your specific roles, career roles, there's a limited amount of them. But I think, like Dr. van der Merwe also mentioned now, that because we live in a world that's changing so much, our jobs as agriculture economists keep on changing as new news comes into the world. And we have lots of things affecting each other, like the politics world really affects agriculture, for example. I mean, the global climate change and all those things is some things we need to take into consideration. So yeah, it's broad out there. So you're not narrowed down to a specific box that you need to go do. You don't have to go work as an agriculture economist at a bank and that's it. No, it's let me go do consulting for a farmer. Let me go do imports for this company of citrus. Let me go, so many options. Almost overwhelming, but a good overwhelming.
Yeah. And I think as long as people need to eat and need to wear clothes, we'll be okay in terms of jobs. And our students usually get jobs within a few months of searching. Most of them have a job as they are leaving the university. Some of my postgraduate students unfortunately get jobs before they finish their degrees, but at least then finishes them in the end. So I don't think our students really have a problem with finding opportunities out there. Precious?
And then there's one more question. How much emphasis is there on high school maths or physics work? Does one do these subjects equally as much as biology-focused subjects in this program?
So I think for the BAgric, let's start with Christian, because you need the math skills and the physics skills, but let me leave it to him to really answer that, if he had to be like a 90% to be able to do the program.
So the emphasis on physics and maths is quite substantial. You do maths and physics and chemistry in your first year, but I think that you don't have to be a 90%er. You can, or what's it, like the high school maths and physics, you literally go through in your first week. So you get a chance to catch up on that, but it is quite, or what's it, relevant. I mean, the chemistry going into what I studied plant and soil science with horticultural science and agricultural economics, and that's just led to that whole horticultural side, especially biochemistry, and that was very like physics intensive. So it is quite relevant if you want to go in that side. I'm not so sure about the what's it, B-Agric or the BCom side of things, but the BSc side, definitely it is quite important.
Yes, and of course, maybe I should also just say, we use maths specifically in agricultural economics as well. When we do the econometric modeling, when we do economics, we also use some maths. Apologies, colleagues. For some reason, I had a big technical problem. Maybe, Latita, I'm not sure if you guys got into the B-Agric. What's the maths and physics requirements there?
So for the maths and physics side, I think, well, from my perspective with the B-Agric, you should have like a bit of an understanding with maths, especially when you're doing your first year, the BCom modules. You have FINAC and then you have stats. So having an understanding of that helps a lot. And then on the agriculture economics side, we do a lot of financials, and the production economics as well does, it taps in a lot in the maths. So so if you can just go into the degree just having a fresher up of your math skills and everything, like trying to understand a lot of the things, because there is application. But if you're not a 90%er, like you're just like 60% or 65, then the degree, like even from BCom and the agriculture economic side, they do help with integrating you into understanding the content. So it's not just like, okay, today we're going to do a function or a function model with log, or we're going to do stats, you're going to run a whole model on the stats. Like there is like a slow integration. And then if you still need further help, there's tutors, so you can speak to the lecturer and ask for a tutor, and then they'll assign a tutor to you. Or in the bigger faculties like the BCom side, they have general tutoring, like where it's a tutor group and you go attend those sessions. So you can ask for help if you're struggling in some parts. So it's not as maths and physics heavy, but in the first year when you do soil science, the soil science is more chemistry heavier. So if you do have a basic understanding, that will help. But again, it is also introductory, so they do ease you in a bit easier. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for that contribution. I saw Alicia was nodding all the way, so I'm sure she agrees. Precious, I think we have time for one last burning question, if there is any.
There isn't any more burning questions in the chat. Monica has covered the other questions.
Okay, great. Excellent. Thank you, guys, for joining us. We appreciate that you took some time off your studies. Thank you, Monica and Precious, for arranging this excellent session. I think it's really helpful for parents to get as much information on as many programs as possible without having to attend something like Open Day. Thanks, Lulama, for your support this evening. And then I think most importantly, thank you to the parents and the prospective students that joined us this evening. We are very excited to have you in our department in 1 or 2 years. You'll likely see some of our postgrads as they continue with their masters. So you are welcome to find us on the website, find our email addresses, send us an email. If you are in Stellenbosch, we are in the J.S. Murray building. So you are also just welcome to walk in and come say hello and meet some of the staff members. So thank you very much once again for your attention, and we look forward to seeing you in a few years. Have a good evening.